welcome. And here we are back in IPHIS Basics, and we are talking about module number 5, which is creating location. And so here we are today. We are joined by Jenny Saar and Vladimir Rasinovich. Hi, say hi, guys.
Hi,
How you
guys.
doing, everyone?
And we are talking about creating data in the IPHIS. And specifically in this module, we're going to talk about creating locations. Now, creating data in the IPHIS is very easy, and I boil it down to 4 steps. So these are the 4 steps for creating data in the IPHIS. You're going to create or review your location. You're going to create or review a workbook and then assign location, create or review a site, create or review an activity, and then finally make sure that you assign your tool identifier or your trap ID to that particular activity when you're trapping. This tool identifier could also be the compliance agreement number or entering in the permit number, whatever that may be, but that's the thing that you're tracking. Now, if you notice, I have these words here identified in the previous module that we had about the lexicon of words. These are the words that are part of that lexicon. So what we're specifically talking about now will be the step 1, which is creating or reviewing a location. If you've already created something, you don't have to recreate something. The whole concept of entering data into the IPHIS is to enter once, use many times. So you should never, ever have to worry about recreating data. What is a location? Before you create a location, you should define what a location is so that everybody's defining it the same way. This is Dana's Orchard. The people who should care about it is you. You should care about how the data is organized in the IPHIS. And part of that organization is understanding the definition of the words that we're using, or the lexicon of words like we talked about in the other module. Dana's Orchard is what we call our location. If you take a look, over here, we have a nice little road coming in here. And it looks like we have an entranceway into the orchard. And the entirety of the area surrounding the orchard is part of the location. Now, if you notice, the empty areas here on the left, empty areas here on the right. Just because there are no hosts does not mean that it's not part of the location. The location is one contiguous piece of land. One contiguous piece of land, not separated by roads. Agricultural roads don't count. Like a parcel of land that you are working with. Okay, so that is what defines a location. And again, if you notice that there are these empty areas here, they could have plowed under where these hosts used to be, or they're rotating the crops so that they're using different parts of the land so they're not wearing out the land where they're working on. Okay. Now, every location must have a GPS grid coordinate, okay? That GPS grid coordinate, I recommend you place it at the entrance into the location. The reason for that is that if you plug in the GPS grid coordinate into your GPS, it will take you right to the entranceway of it. You don't want to put the grid coordinate on the back end because there's no road. There may be an agricultural road here, but you wouldn't drive up to it with your car or your truck right up to it. You'll be coming down this road, and if you plug in your GPS grid coordinate, it'll take you right to the entrance into the location. When you're creating a location, all locations must have a grid coordinate, and you only need one. You don't need 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 grid coordinates to define a location. You just need one. So how do we define a location, Jenny?
It's one parcel or one area.
Exactly. One parcel, one area, a contiguous piece of land. So if it's broken up into different parts, then you can create different locations. But a location is one contiguous piece of land. It has one GPS grid coordinate. And if you have an address, please use the address. So for example, this is what it would look like if we had a location on a map. In this case, the orchard office is here, and this is the specific address for the location. Okay, This is a specific address, and if you're going to take the grid coordinate, I would take that grid coordinate right here at the entrance gateway into the property, okay? And you can see here how they've got the grid coordinate. You would enter that in for your location. And that is how we define a location. Creating locations or data creation. This is where we actually start entering data into the IPHIS. Creating data in the IPHIS is very easy, and I boil it down to 4 steps. Remember in the other modules, how about navigating around in the IPHIS? When we're navigating in the IPHIS, remember to create that application sentence. What do we want to do? We're working on a data entry, and the step 1, we're going to create, what are we working on?
Locations.
Location. So we want to create a location. So let's go to our IPHIS. Make sure you check your name up here in the upper right-hand corner. Make sure that that's who you are. Make sure that you're in the appropriate office for whatever office you're working on. Now, remember, we're working on location. So Jenny, which tab do I click on in order to get to the locations?
I think locations.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. That's how easy it is. So we go ahead and click on the locations. When you click, remember, click on the tab itself. Do not go ahead and click on the submenus. Click on the tab itself so that way you can see what are the submenus. Now, remember, we're reading the screen. 90% of your answers are on the screen in front of you. You just have to remember how to read the screen. So how many major areas of the screen do we have, Jenny?
Ooh, well, we've just clicked on the tab, which is green. Then we have a whole menu under it. There's folder management, a workbook list, and then a location menu to the right middle. So
Exactly.
3 big choices, I think.
Exactly, and you're exactly correct. So reading the screen, now we know what we want to work with. And Vlad, what are we creating?
Location.
So we look on the side here that has locations. Now, when you go first click on this tab, be patient with it, give it the opportunity to load, because as you can see here, there are 9,810 records. So you've got 10 pages of entries, but you have a total of 9,000 entries in this office. Now that we're on the location side, can either of you tell me how you would create a location?
I would hit
Go ahead, Jenny.
the button that says create.
Yep, right there, right where it says location. So we're going to go ahead and click on that create button. That's how easy it is. It's not a hard thing. So once you get in there, you'll be able to, you'll see the entry form for creating a location. And then all you're doing is filling in the blank. What fields do we have to fill in?
Well, my guess would be that red asterisk sign would be the required field that we need to fill in.
Exactly, you have to fill that in. So go ahead and fill in all the appropriate information. Now, when you take a look at some of these for locations, please ignore the template field. Don't worry about putting a template. The reason for that is we want to be able to enter data, use it many times. If you select a template, you're locking in that location with that particular template, okay? So be conscious of that. Do not select a template. Everything else, go ahead and fill in. So for example, if the location is a commercial location or a residential location or other, choose the appropriate location category, okay? So if it's commercial location, you would select commercial. For type, you're going to enter in the type of location that may be, whatever it may be. It could be a grower, a harvester, hauler, whatever you identify it as. You can skip over class. What class is to identify whether it's a small, medium, or large chain establishment, okay? So if you want to fill that in, it's an optional field. It's your choice. You'll fill in the address, city, state, county, all the way down. Now, if you notice here, zip code is not required. Zip code is not required. So make sure that you've got a good address to use when you're filling in the address, okay? and you won't have to worry about that zip code. There is an option to create a location using the map. I do not recommend using that. Google Maps stays more up to date. I would manually type in each of the locations. These other fields, section, township, range, grid, these are different ways that you can enter in that information depending on what state, what office that you're in, what wherever you're working. Make sure that you check with other people that enter data to find out if you need to fill in that information. More information is better than no information. So do your best to go ahead and fill in this information as much as you can. Your geo accuracy level, you'll be able to identify it, whether it is a zip code, street address. This helps the system kind of identify how you're identifying your location. And then your geo method, if you used a GPS device, go ahead and use a GPS, put in the GPS from that, or you can get your GPS information, your grid location, your coordinates from using Google Maps. And I'll show that to you here in a minute. Now, once you get all that information in, if you want to enter in a comment, you can enter in a comment. And then once everything has been filled in, then all you have to do is click on save. I do not recommend creating a default site because it'll just put a random number in there for the name of the default site. So do not check this box. Also, it is okay to have duplicates in the system. Sometimes there's a necessity for that. When that happens, you will see a duplicate box up here that comes up where it'll ask you to go ahead and create, if it's okay to be able to create that duplicate. Enter in your information for a name. In this case, it's going to be government. I'm going to choose other here. Put in my address. Select California. You got to know your county. I'm going to leave the zip code blank so that you can see it here as what it does. And then my geo method will be digitized manual entry because I looked it up. I'll just say US building. And then I'm going to go ahead and save it. And notice here it says duplicate address found in another location. Okay. Just click on OK. And what you'll do is you'll come back up here to the top. You'll see here that it says duplicate address found for another location. Check the box to continue to save this location with duplicate address. Once we do that, we can go ahead and click on save, and it's going to save it right into our locations. What we'll do is we'll go in here and go to Google Maps, and we are going to look up the federal building in Sacramento. Now, once I look up a place, an establishment like this, all I have to do is place my mouse on here, and I can right click. And if you notice, as soon as I right click, it will show here the grid coordinates for that particular location. If you click on the grid coordinates themselves, it'll show you that it copied it to the clipboard. Once it copies it to the clipboard, then you can come in here for your latitudes and your longitudes, and you should be able to paste that right in there. Cut out the longitude, paste that in there. Now, please keep in mind that we are in the Western Hemisphere. So everything in your longitude must have a negative number in there. That's all you have to do. Finding your location is pretty easy. Whenever you create a location the first time, it will always populate to the top. Just keep that in mind that this list, when it comes up, it always brings it the latest created locations first. So whatever the locations you just created, that will show up in the very top. After that, it may end up getting buried, especially if you create a bunch of locations at one time. Can either of you tell me, is there a way that I could display search filters so that I can find my location?
Well, probably just put the check mark on the display search filters.
There you go.
Box.
Once you click on that checkbox, it will display the search filters. Once we do that, then I can type in any portion of any of that location in order to find it. If an address is available, please use an address. If it's not available, then you can always select remote on there. In this case, we've got a named address. So if we know the name of the location, so I could type in portion of the name. So we know that portion of the name is John, right? John E. Moss Federal Building. But in this case, I'm just going to type in John. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and search. And when I search, look at that. I got 2 results. I got one that's John Galt Court and then John E. Moss Federal Building. And now we know how to be able to find things. So you can type in any portion of the name, any portion of the address, and you'll be able to find what you're looking for. That's how easy it is. Now, you got to remember one thing about IPHIS. It is a last in, first out system. What that means is the last thing you entered is the first thing that must be deleted before you can delete anything else. So if the last thing that you enter in is an activity associated with a location, then you have to click delete all of the activities before you can delete that location. And you may have thousands of activities against the location. So keep that in mind, because you just can't delete a location just because you want to, just because you don't think you need it anymore. When it's associated with other data, it has to stay in there. You must delete all the associated information before you can delete the location. And since location is the very first thing that we create, guess what? It's going to stay in there. There are details if you wanted to modify the address in any way. Okay, these 3 dots are called an ellipsis. It takes 2 distinct clicks on the ellipsis in order to activate it. One click is to select it. The second click is to open up the submenu. Anywhere you go in the IPHIS, whenever you see the ellipsis, it's the same thing. 2 distinct clicks in order to open up that particular item. So here, if I wanted to edit my item, all I will have to do is select edit. Once I select edit, it'll bring me back into my data entry screen for this location, and then I can modify anything that I want with this particular location. Now, I don't know if you remember, Jenny, did I enter in a zip code for this address?
I see one there.
But I didn't enter one.
Nope.
So the one good, exactly. So one of the good things about the IPHIS is you don't have to worry about zip codes, especially when you have a good address, okay? I get that question all the time. We're not going to put any addresses in here because we don't have the zip codes. We can't figure that out. We've resolved that, so zip codes are no longer a required entry, okay? So don't worry about entering a zip code. So if I want to edit any of the information, this is how I would edit the information, okay? Once you completed your editing, all you have to do is click on save, and it will save the information for you. Again, we found this duplicate. All we have to do is select continue to save this location with a duplicate address and click on save. If we want to be able to see more details about a particular location, we can click right on the name of the location, and it'll give us to the location details page. And in here, so long as we don't have any other information that is associated with a location, Jenny, how would I be able to delete this location?
Assuming, as you said, there's no associated data, then this is our last in, so it can be the first out. Then I would probably hit the delete button in blue.
In the location details section, correct?
Yep, yep.
There you go. That's how easy it is to delete a location. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this because we don't need this location anymore. It asks me whether I'm certain that I want to do this, and then I click on OK. Once I do that, it will delete the location and it will no longer exist. If you have any questions on how to do this, you can replay the module. And if you have any questions, make sure to check out the description below, click on the links, and you'll be well on your way.